Hi, this is Dr. Swapna and I welcome you to your Learn Lab. If you are an IGNOU student looking for help in your studies, then you have reached the right place. Here, we have lecture videos on different core and elective subjects of important IGNOU courses. We aim to help you ace your exams. So hit subscribe to our channel and as you watch, make sure to like and share too. Come and join me on this beautiful learning journey. Today we are going to see Unit 4, which is Quantitative Research Methods, of Block 2, which is Quantitative and Qualitative Research Methods. Now, both these are topics from BPCC 105, which is Psychological Research. What are we going to study? We'll see what is a research design. We'll get introduced to quantitative research. We'll see what is experimental and non-experimental research. We'll study about laboratory experiment and field experiment. We'll also see what is ex post facto research design. Let's first start with the research design. A research design is a blueprint or framework of process, steps, methods, and techniques which are selected by a researcher to carry on the research in a reasonably logical manner. So basically, a research design has everything which the researcher has planned to conduct the study or the research he wants to do. All right, so it will have process, what all processes are going to be involved, what are the different steps which are going to be involved in each of these processes, what are the methods which would be used, what are the techniques that are being selected. All of this information would be present in the research design. Now, this research design is prepared before starting the actual research. Obviously, it's logical, right? There is no point in having a research design, which is a blueprint, after you complete the research or after you start the research. So, research design is something that is prepared before you start the research. And a type of research design is selected based on the nature of problem. So you will see we'll have two distinct types of research designs, qualitative and quantitative, and within that there would be more different types of research designs, and which of these will be selected will depend on the nature of the problem that is under study. All right, now, the research design acts as a guideline for the conduction of research. So, after you prepare the research design, it will be easy for you to proceed with the whole procedure, because you will have every step noted down. What needs to be done first and what comes after, and what are the techniques to be used in each of the step. You will have all the blueprint ready with you. So, it would be easy for you to proceed with the research. Now, it guides on selection of tool, collection of data, and analysis of data on the basis of the selected purpose of the research design. An effective research design helps in minimizing error or bias. All right, so if you have a solid plan with you, it will help in minimizing any error or any bias that can potentially crop up because of something you do unplanned without any thinking. All right. Let's now see what are the different elements of a research design. The first element, as we have all studied the, you know, methods or process in a research, the first step here is similar to that. And what is it? A research objective and questions, or the problem which is under study. Okay, so the research objective will have specific goals of the research. What exactly is the research wanting to find out? What is the aim of the research? Why are we doing it? That's research objective and the questions which would be answered by the research. Second element we have is the hypothesis. This also we have studied what is hypothesis, right? It's a tentative statement that tells you about the possible solution of the question that is being studied, right? So these are testable statements about relationship between variables being studied, right? So we said hypotheses are tested. We studied about hypothesis testing also, right? In case you haven't watched that video, I'll put the link in the description about the whole playlist. You can check the whole playlist. So yeah, so when you test the hypothesis, we know that it will tell whether there is a relationship between the variables or whether there is no relationship between the variables. Now the third element would be the settings. Settings means where the research will be conducted and under what conditions. All right, so that is the all about setting. Even when you hear about the word setting, this is what the meaning that also comes out, right? That almost all like the setting of the research or the setting of a movie or setting of a story. It basically tells about all the background conditions, like where is it happening, what are the different conditions. Okay, then the fourth element we have is variable. Variable is what is being studied, right? These are the concepts or characteristics that are being measured or studied. And we have also studied about different types of variables. So we manipulate the independent variable to find out what is happening to the dependent variable. And we have to control the extraneous variables, right? Then we have sampling. Sampling means it's the selection of a sample or subset that represents the population under study. So if we have a population of like 10,000 individuals, it would be difficult for us to, collect data from all the 10,000 people. So what we do, we choose 10 or maybe 100 people from the set of 10,000, and whatever result we get from these 100 people, we extend that result or we generalize that result to the whole population of 10,000 people. See, so that is sampling. Sampling means selection of that smaller subset from the population, and this subset will truly represent the population back, which means whatever result you get for the smaller population would be correct for the or can be applied to the larger population also. Then the next element we have is data collection methods. These are specific techniques or methods used to gather data such as surveys, interviews, observations or experiments. Then we have the data analysis methods. So if this was the method on how to collect the data, this is how to analyze the data. These are the procedures used to interpret and make sense of the data collected. All right. So these are basically the statistical techniques that would be used to analyze the data that has been obtained. And how did we collect the data? Using different methods such as surveys, interviews, observations, or experiments. Then we need to have the timeline. That's another important element of the research design. This is the tentative but well-defined timeline to manage and track the progress, which means how much time do you need for the first step to complete, how much time do you need for the second step to complete. You need to have an accurate idea, like how much time you could take, so that if at all, and then also you need some time in case something goes wrong or you're not able to finish on time, so you will give a grace period also. So together you will have a tentative idea about how much time you would take to complete the whole research. So timelines are also an important aspect of research design. Then we need to have ethical guidelines. We have studied about ethics, right? Ethics in research. So why do we need ethical guidelines? To ensure that the study is conducted responsibly and ethically, while minimizing harm and maximizing benefits to participants and the society in general. Finally, the last element of research design is the limitation. Limitation means what is the scope of the research? What all could, what is not allowed in the research or what cannot be done in the research? So it helps in understanding the scope and generalizability of the research. Okay, so these were the elements of a research design. Next, we have characteristics of a research design. So these characteristics, these terms we have already discussed in previous videos, but yeah, let's revise here also. Reliable. This is the first characteristic of a research design. Reliability means consistency, repeatability, and trustworthiness of the research design. So you might do a particular study today, and if you repeat this study after 5 years, it should give you consistent results. All right, you should be able to repeat it. This shows that you can trust the research design. Okay, that's reliability. Secondly, validity. How accurately a design studies what it is intended to study. Okay, if it will study exactly what you are telling, it will. So this is the accuracy, truthfulness, and credibility of the research. Then neutral, which means your research design is free from any bias, extremities, and it's not judgmental. All right. Then fourth, we have generalizability, which means the results that are obtained can be extended to the population. The result that you are getting for a smaller sample holds true for the larger population from which the sample has been selected also. So this provides results which can be generalized and applied to the population. These are the four important characteristics of a research design. Next, we will see types of research design. What are the two important types of research designs? We have two types of research designs, two very important types of research designs. First is qualitative research design and the second is quantitative research design. Qualitative research design is concerned with phenomenon and involves the investigation of the reasons of various human behavior, underlying motives and desires, which means we are studying why something is happening, why a particular behavior is happening, what is the underlying motive, what is that desire that pushes someone to behave in a certain way. All right, so that is qualitative research design. It deals with textual data. Quantitative research design, it is concerned with measurement of quantity or amount of any event, situation or incidents to collect actionable insights. So here we are measuring something. You are assigning a number or a value to the variable. So we are here dealing with numbers when it comes to quantitative research designs. Now, qualitative research design, it uses in-depth interviews. You know what is interview, right? In-depth interviews where you can ask questions as deep as possible. Okay. And it uses open-ended questions for data collection. Now, what are open-ended questions? Open-ended questions are those which cannot be answered easily with a simple yes or no. So, open-ended questions are asked to encourage the person to give a detailed or elaborate response. So, as a psychologist, you will use open ended questions to explore a person's thoughts, feelings, and experiences in depth. Like, how are you feeling right now? What were you thinking when you did something? This is something where you need a detailed answer. No, not a simple yes or no. So those are open-ended questions. And where are we using open-ended questions? In qualitative research design. Then in quantitative research design, we use questionnaires and use closed-end questions for data collection. You know what is questionnaires, right? Questions would be already prepared and it would be printed out, or it could be an online version also where you are expected to answer it. So it could be, mostly objective types where you can easily choose an option. These are closed-ended questions where you don't have to write anything in detail. You can simply choose from the options that are given along with the questions. All right. So we have learned two important differences between qualitative and quantitative research design. There is more to come, but let's just revise these two. We know what is qualitative research design and what is quantitative research design, right? We learned that qualitative research design uses in-depth interviews and open-ended questions which cannot be answered with a single yes or no, while quantitative research design uses questionnaires and uses closed-end questions, right? Now, the next difference we have is qualitative research design is important in the behavioral sciences, where the aim is to discover the underlying motives of human behavior, while quantitative research design is important in social sciences, where the aim is to collect information to analyze relationship between the variables, predictions, and comparisons. Okay, so here we just want to know the underlying motives or desires of a behavior. Like it's all more qualitative, textual, or what do you say, more subjective answers. While here in social sciences, we use quantitative research design to collect solid information, numerical information, so that we can analyze it and we can find out the relationship between two variables so that we can do predictions or comparisons between the variables. All right. Then, what are the different types of qualitative research design? Ethnography, we'll learn all of this in detail. grounded theory, we have survey research, and we have case study. While under quantitative research designs, we have laboratory experiments, field experiments, field studies, quasi-experimental research, and ex post facto research. All right. So we have completed a basic understanding of what is a research design. In this video, we'll be concentrating on quantitative research design. All right. And in our next video, we'll explore qualitative research design in detail. So let's continue with quantitative research design. What is a quantitative research design? It's a systematic approach to gathering and analyzing numerical data to quantify opinions, behaviors, and other defined variables. So here we are using number. Why? To quantify the data that we are collecting. It could be opinion, it could be behavior, or it could be any other variable that is defined. We will be assigning numbers to this so that we can analyze them statistically, right? It uses structured methods like surveys, experiments, and observations with measurable variables to manipulate them to examine the cause effect relationship, comparative analysis, or interventional analysis within a specified population. This means what are we going to use in quantitative research design? We use surveys, and for surveys we can use questionnaires. We can perform experiments, or we can simply observe something using measurable variables, and we manipulate these variables to what? To examine the cause effect. If something is causing an effect to happen, okay, and we can use it to compare between the two variables, or if we want to develop intervention when if we have developed interventions and to see if the intervention is working or not within a specified population. For all of this we use quantitative research design. It is also used to test hypotheses and draw conclusions that can be generalized to a larger population. We have seen hypothesis testing, right? There also we are applying what? Statistical analysis. And for that, we use quantitative research design. Anywhere statistics is involved, it's quantitative research design. All right. Then let's move on to the characteristics of the quantitative research design. So we have learned most of these characteristics as elements of research design, right? So here we'll again deal with most of these as characteristics of quantitative research design. The first is research questions. Obviously we need questions to find answers, right? So these are clearly defined and answers are sought objectively. Secondly, we have a representative sample. And what is a representative sample? It's a sample that truly represents the population selected for the study. The results obtained for the sample are to be generalized for the whole population, which means, as I explained earlier, if we have a population of 10,000 people, it would be difficult for us to perform a study on all these 10,000 people. So we randomly select 100 people out of it, do our study, and whatever result we get, we apply that on these 10,000 also. We take it that the results is applicable to this 10,000 people also as it is applicable to this 100. So this 100 truly represents the population. So this becomes the representative sample. Then thirdly, it deals with variables. The researcher manipulates means increases or decreases the independent variable. We know that this is the variable that is manipulated by the researcher. And the researcher can even control the extraneous or confounding variables which can also affect the research study. So quantitative research design has all sorts of variables which can be manipulated or controlled. Going forward, quantitative research design involves data collection. The data are collected in the form of numbers and statistics, often arranged in tables, charts, figures, or other non-textual forms with the help of structured or standardized research instruments. Okay, so the data is collected in the form of numbers, numerical data, so that we can perform statistical analysis on it. And we can collect the data in the form of tables or charts or figures or any other non-textual format also using structured or standardized tools. All right. Then we have data analysis. Obviously, after we have collected the data, next thing is we have to analyze the data. The data is analyzed with the help of empirical evidences. Empirical means observable evidences. All right. Then obviously the research design, the main characteristic, reliability and validity. This means that it is consistent. This means that it will actually study what it claims to study. And generalizability. This we have already explained. So these are the characteristics of a quantitative research design. Moving on to strengths of quantitative research design. What are the advantages or what are the merits of the quantitative research design? It provides an opportunity to collect data from a larger sample, right? So because we have a representative population, it helps in conducting a broader study, right? Because we are taking numbers, we can generalize it. So it helps in conducting a broader study. Allows generalization of results to a larger population. It helps the researcher to attain reliable, valid, accurate, and objective results. Okay, remember reliable, valid, accurate, and objective results. It also provides an opportunity to replicate and design similar studies. See, replicability. This comes with reliability, right? When a test is reliable, you can replicate it also. So, quantitative research design provides an opportunity to replicate and design similar studies also. Going ahead, it provides an opportunity to conduct experiment under controlled environment and so minimizes error variance. So when you are performing a quantitative research design, you will be performing an experiment under controlled environment. So this minimizes any chance of any error variance. All right. Another strength is that it uses close-ended question and structured questions, which provides responses free from personal biases. So if you are asked to write a paragraph as an answer, you could get tired or you don't want to or you don't know how to. There could be n number of reasons where you will not give the actual response. So that problem will not happen here because it uses structured questions which you can answer in yes or no or just by choosing the multiple choice option that you have. And those are close-ended questions, right? So these are the strengths of a quantitative research design. So if there is a strength, there has to be a weakness also. So this is the limitations of quantitative research design that we are going to look at next. So it lacks contextual details and response is in contextual setting, which means you are using close-ended questions, right? So the person who's participating in the research can only answer in yes or no or in the multiple choice that you're providing. So you won't have any details, contextual details. Like if you're asking a question and someone answered yes, you don't know why the person answered yes or why the person answered no or why the person answered don't know, right? So it lacks contextual details. It's limited to statistical approach and so lacks the ground for the process of discovery. Already something is there, you are testing it, if it is true or not. There is no discovery happening here. You are using the statistical approach to prove something right or something wrong or if something is actually existing or not, right? So it limits the process of discovery. The close-ended or structured questions might reflect a limited and incomplete information. Exactly what I told you earlier, that you won't know why the person has answered a certain in a certain way. So the close-ended question is going to give a limited and incomplete information. The results might provide narrower and superficial data set, right? Because it's going to be a
Thank you
one-word
all for
answer.
learning with me.
So
If you
your
found
result
the
is
video
going to be
helpful,
narrow
make sure
and
you let me know
superficial,
by hitting the like
not in a
button.
detailed
Make
way.
sure you share the video with your
The
friends
research
too.
might not
Subscribe
yield
to make sure
natural
that you don't
and
miss out on
original
any of the
response
new
of
videos.
individuals in a
You
controlled
can reach
setting.
me by simply dropping a
So
comment.
when you are
See you in the next one.
performing an
Till then, happy
experiment, it
learning.
would be in a controlled setting. Or if you are performing a survey, it would be in a controlled setting. So in that kind of setting, the person may not be able to behave naturally or give you an accurate result. And the person may lie also, or person may not want to say the correct answer, or the person is not feeling comfortable in the setting, might be shy or introvert. Any of these things could limit the quantitative research design, right? So these are the limitations of quantitative research design. Next, we have types of quantitative research design, which is experimental and non-experimental research design. So the research design, the quantitative research design could be either experimental or could be non-experimental, which means you can either perform an experiment or you may not perform an experiment, right? So let's do a comparative study of these also. So in experimental research design, the researcher actively manipulates the participants and the independent variable, right? So that's what experiment is all about. You will have a participant, you will have independent variable, and you can manipulate both and see what is the effect on the dependent variable. While in non-experimental research design, the researcher observes the variable as they naturally occur. No manipulation of the variable or the participant. So here in non-experimental, there is no manipulation happening. The researcher is observing the participant in their natural settings. All right. Secondly, the researcher has a high degree of reliability and control over the conditions and variables, right? The experiment is highly reliable and you can control the extraneous or confounding variables, so you can, minimize the error also. But here, this is not possible because you are observing the participant or the variables in the natural setting. So the researcher has limited control over extraneous variables, but a high degree of external validity and generalizability can be achieved. Right? You have no control over extraneous variable here because it's a natural setting. But here you can control it because of the controlled environment you are performing the experiment in. All right. Now, experimental research design is used to establish cause and effect relationship between variables, which means if some A is causing B or not, or if variable A is resulting in the effect B or not. While non-experimental research design is used to describe, explore, or explain relationships between variables. All right. Then, in experimental research design, we randomly assign participants to the group. Okay, so we have randomly selected the sample, and from the selected sample, we'll be randomly assigning participants to different groups that we are studying. While in non-experimental, it does not involve random assignment of participants. Okay, so there is a chance of bias here. Under experimental, both experimental and control groups are employed. What is experimental group? This is the group of selected from the sample which are given the experimental treatment. Control group, this is the group selected from the sample which are not given the experimental treatment. And then both the groups are compared and we see what is the effect that has happened because of the treatment of treatment options or the treatment conditions, right? While in non-experimental, it may or may not use control groups. It's not necessary for this to use a control group while it is necessary in here. All right. Then potential ethical concerns, especially when manipulating variables that could have negative consequences. So while you're performing experiments, you need to be very careful about the ethical considerations. Okay, it should harm none. It should be of maximum benefit, right? While in non-experimental research design, it may have less direct ethical concern, but still need to be mindful of participants' privacy and confidentiality. All right. So just because we are calling it non-experimental research and we are talking that it has less direct ethical concerns and it may or may not have control groups, this does not mean that it is not quantitative, right? So while non-experimental research does not involve manipulating variables, To establish the cause and effect relationship like the experimental research, it can still use numerical data and statistical analysis to describe and analyze relationship between the different variables. All right. So non-experimental research design is also a type of quantitative research design, in case any of you had that doubt. All right. Now, let's move on to types of experimental research design. We have three types of experimental research design. The first is pre-experimental research design. Then we have true experimental research design. And we have finally quasi-experimental research design. Let's see what is a pre-experimental research design. So this is the simplest design. Okay. Now it follows basic steps of experiment which is conducted on a single group. Now this is the important part here. We have all the regular steps of an experiment. We have a research problem, we have an hypothesis, we test the hypothesis, we come to the result, we do statistical analysis and all of that. But all of this happens in a single group. Okay, there is no control group involved. This is a very important part. No control group in pre-experimental research design. The group is observed to examine the cause-effect relationship between variables. Cost effective as it is administered on a single experimental group only. So here what happens is that I might have discovered a new intervention or a new method to maybe deal with anxiety. Now I want to test it on a group of people. So I select a group of people and then I try my method on them. And then finally I see if they have improved or not. Right? So I'm just using a single group where I'm applying my experimental conditions and then studying the result. There is no control group involved. So it is very cost effective because only one group. Lesser the people, more saving you have in terms of resources, right? So this is pre-experimental research design. Remember, it's the simplest design. There is only single group, no control group, right? And cost effective. The pre-experimental research design can be further divided into three types. First is one-shot case study research design. Second is one group pre-test, post-test research design, and static group comparison. Let's see each of them. First, we have one-shot case study research design. So here what happens is that researcher provides a treatment to a single group and observes whether these treatments have led to some change or effect on the behavior or response of the group. All right. This is similar to what we have discussed about the pre-experimental research design, right? The purpose of the research design is to examine whether the treatment has any effect on the outcome. Exactly the same how what about the example that I told you, the new intervention on anxiety. I am going to test it on a group and see if there is any change in the outcome, right? So this is one shot case study research design. Single group, provide the treatment and check for the result. One shot, everything is happening. Next, secondly, we have the one group pre-test, post-test research design. Again, here what happens is that there is one group design consisting of a single group of participants and all the participants are given the same treatments and assessments. But there is a linear ordering in which a dependent variable is measured before and after treatment, which means I'll be checking how much you have understood the subject before I give you the test, or sorry, before I teach you something, and then I conduct the test. After the test, I know the outcome. So I'll be testing before the exam and after the exam as to how much you know about a particular topic. This might be a very crude example, but yeah, I hope you understood the basic, right? So you'll have a test before the experiment, then after the experiment also you will check to see what was the difference between the conditions before and after you applied a particular condition. All right. The effect of a treatment or intervention is determined by calculating the difference between the pre and post assessment of the dependent variable, which means you will see what was the dependent variable before the test and after the test, right? And subtracting this, you get the final outcome. So in the earlier type, what we were doing in one shot, you were just checking if there is an effect at all. Here, you are checking what is the effect. Okay, you will find out the actual effect that has come because of the treatment. Now the third type we have is static group comparison. So here what happens is that there are two groups of participants. One experimental group which receives the treatment and a control group which does not. After the treatment is administered to one group, post-test scores are determined from both the groups, which is used to measure the difference after treatment between the two groups. Alright. So here also, you will be actually performing the study only on one group. The other group is static, it's not doing anything. You will get all your results from this group that you have conducted the experiment on and then compare it with the other group which hasn't done anything. So that is static group comparison. But why is it different? Because here the groups are not randomly assigned and hence a chance of selection bias. Okay, so here we are not randomly assigning the groups, because of which there could be a chance of selection bias. These are the three types of pre-experimental research design, right? And what are we studying? We are studying the three types of experimental research design. And the second type of experimental research design that we have is true experimental research design. Now, if the first one was the most simplest, this is the most accurate. True experimental research design is the most accurate experimental research design as it involves analyzing of proposed hypothesis with the help of statistics. Here there is an experimental group and a control group. Independent variables can be manipulated and examined. The sample is randomly selected from the population and is a true representation. Now these are the most important points. So if you remember in the last one, the sample was not randomly assigned here and there was no separate groups, right? There was only single group. Here we have an experimental group, we have a control group. Now, how is this different from the static study that we discussed about? In our static study, of the one group, what we did was we had two groups A and B. This was static, this was not doing anything, right? But everything was being done by the group A. The experiment was conducted on group A and then we were checking if there is any difference. Here, control group means if you are testing the efficacy of a drug on two groups, we'll have an experimental group and we'll have a control group. Here what you are going to do is you are going to give a particular drug to A. You are also going to give something to B which will not be the drug, which will be something neutral, might be vitamins or maybe just water, but they don't know what they are getting. Okay, so that's why this is a control group here. This is different from the static one. All right, here the B group is control group is static. You are not giving them anything. But here, to make it a true experimental research design, while you are giving the drug to group A, you will be giving a placebo to group B to maintain the same experimental condition for both the groups. All right. And again, independent variables can be manipulated and examined, same as earlier, and sample is randomly selected. That is true experimental research design. Next, we have the third type, that is quasi-experimental research design. So this resembles a true experimental research design, but it is not exactly a true experimental research design. How is it different? Main difference, there is no random distribution of participants to experimental and control groups. So there is an experimental group and there is a control group, but there is no random distribution of the participants to these groups. There is an independent variable which can be manipulated in the research design. Okay, the true experimental research design use probability sampling, but a quasi-experimental research design has no probability sampling. This means in probability sampling, each of the people in this population of 10,000 have equal probability of being selected into this sample. Okay, in non-probability sampling, you are choosing 100 people as per your wish. There is no random sampling. Everyone does not have an equal chance to be in this 100. Okay, so in true experimental research design, we use probability sampling. In quasi-experimental, we are using non-probability sampling. We are selecting the sample using non-probability, and from that sample, we are not randomly distributing the participants to experimental and control groups. Here also the researcher is going to use his personal bias to choose who goes into the experimental group and who goes into the control group. That is why we call it as a quasi-experimental research design. It resembles the true experimental design, but it is not true experimental design. All right. We have another two categories of quantitative research design. These are called laboratory experiment and field experiment. We have a third one also along with this, which is called field studies. So in your study material, there is a table which is giving comparison of all the three. So we'll directly discuss that. All right. So laboratory experiments are experiments conducted under control setting. Okay. While field experiments are not conducted under controlled setting. It's in the field, it's out in the open, not inside the laboratory. All right. And when it is field studies, researches are conducted under natural environment. There is no experiment, this is not a planned experiment, right? So this is an experiment in the laboratory. This is an experiment in the field. This is simply a study in the natural environment. All right. Second difference, the experimenter can manipulate independent variables as well as control the extraneous variables, right? Because it is a controlled environment. But here, the experimenter can control independent variables but has no control over the extraneous variable because of the natural setting. All right. In field studies, researcher has neither can neither manipulate independent variable nor control the extraneous variable because you are doing something, you are studying something naturally. You haven't planned an experiment here. So there is no independent variable which you are manipulating and no extraneous variable which can be under control. All right. In laboratory experiment, ecological validity is lowest, which means inside the laboratory condition, whatever data you are collecting is contextual and limited. Okay, which means the participant will be providing answer only to the yes or no that you are asking, a close-ended question, right? So when you are using close-ended question, there would be low ecological validity. While field experiment ecological validity is comparatively higher because the subjects are in their natural environment. You are asking questions in their home or in their school or in their university. So there is a chance that they are more open. They don't feel constrained. So ecological validity is a bit higher. But in field studies, ecological validity is the highest because you are studying them. You are not asking them questions. You are naturally observing them there. So they don't have to worry about you. They may not even mind you. So here the ecological validity is the highest. Then we can infer casual conditions as their internal validity is high because it is being conducted inside a controlled environment. The internal validity is high. Now, depending on their control, the level of control of extraneous variables, they may have high internal validity and accordingly we may infer causal conditions. So this all depends. Okay, there's a spelling mistake here. This is conditions. Yeah. So here the internal validity depends on how much control you have over the field or the natural setting. Okay, based on that it could be high. It could be low also. Okay, here in the field studies, we cannot infer causal conditions as their internal validity is very low. It's happening out in the field and it's you're observing someone. So here the internal validity is low. Under laboratory experiment, the generalizability of the findings is limited. Okay, but here in the field experiment, the results can be generalized to the population under study. Here, the results can be generalized to larger section of people because you are observing them in their natural environment, right? So this was the difference between laboratory experiment, field experiment and field studies. Let's move on to the last type of quantitative research design that we have. This is ex post facto research design. Now, ex post facto research design is a research that is done to infer the causes of an event that has already happened. Okay, so a tsunami has happened already. Now you want to study why it happened. An earthquake has come and there has been vast devastation. You want to know why it happened. Or if you have seen the latest Netflix series called Adolescence, you understand what it is, right? So this means you are studying something, a psychology behind something or a cause behind something after it has happened. So this research design is also known as the after the fact research. It is similar to quasi-experimental research because the participants cannot be randomly assigned, right? You can use only those participants who were a part of something that happened in the past. Okay, so if there was a massive killing in a school, you can only have participants who were there, who watched it, right? Or who know more about it. All right, so this is ex post facto research design. The participants are grouped on the basis of characteristics like age, weight, and compared with reference to independent and dependent variables. Okay, if at all you want to group a participant, you will have to use ages like, characteristics like age, weight, and compare them with reference to independent or dependent variables. So this is ex post facto research design. So if you have watched Adolescence in Netflix, it is all about ex post facto research design in psychology. All right. So yeah, we are done with unit 4 of block 2. Let's look at the previous year questions from this topic. First question we have December 2024 and this is differentiate between laboratory and field experiments. This was for 10 marks. We have already discussed this, right? What are laboratory and what is field experiments? We have the table. You can just explain the table with examples. You can create an example. You just have to, finish the word limit. And then in June 2024, we had discussed the differences in experimental and non-experimental research design. Here you have to write what is experimental, what is non-experimental, and what are the different types of experimental research design. Then in December 2023, we had explained the characteristics, strengths, and limitations of quantitative research design. This also we have discussed, right? We have seen what are the strengths, we have seen what are the limitations, and we have seen what are the characteristics. And I said these are very similar to elements of research design that we have discussed. Then in the same year, there was another question. Write short notes on the following in about 150 words each. And the question was difference between field experiment and field studies. This also we have discussed. Then June 2023, we had two questions that also 10 marks. First one is describe the elements, characteristics and types of research design. Second one was explain the types of experimental research design. Okay. So it seems this unit is pretty popular among question people who set the question paper. So make sure you learn this chapter thoroughly. All right. In December 2022, we had write short notes on the following in about 200 words each. The question was experimental research design. Finally, in June 2022, we had define research design, elucidate on the elements and characteristics of the research design. So that was all about this very popular and important topic from BPCC 105, right? Thank you all for learning with me. If you found the video helpful, make sure you let me know by hitting the like button. Make sure you share the video with your friends too. Subscribe to make sure you do not miss out on any new videos. You can reach me by simply dropping a comment. See you in the next one. Till then, happy learning.